Hi. Oh, this Iowa State audience, the students just got older, didn't they? Okay. Hi. I'm Fern Kupfer. I teach in the English department, and I am faculty chair of lectures. I have a couple of announcements quick before we start. Tomorrow at noon in the Great Hall, part of the Women's Leadership series, Women in Power, there'll be a talk tomorrow at noon. There is a reception and book signing. I don't know if we'll have enough food following this lecture, and the committee of lecturers wants to thank our co-sponsors tonight, the GSB, Government of Student Body, and the Ames Public Library. Yes. Are we clapping for the library? Okay, that's good. Jeffrey Zaslow is a terrific journalist whose beat is people, family, relationships. A popular columnist, his work has been in Time, in the Chicago Sun-Times, the Wall Street Journal. You might know Mr. Zaslow. He was the co-author with the Carnegie Mellon professor, Randy Pausch, of the best-selling book, The Last Lecture. It's very moving. And it followed the inspiring talk that the professor gave to students at the end of his too young life. Tonight, Jeffrey Zaslow is here to talk about his new book, The Girls from Ames, which evolved after a column he wrote about women and friendship. I read the book in one night. It's true, I'm a fast reader as an English teacher. But I was delighted in the descriptions of Ames, as you will be, and most especially because I knew some of the players. Mr. Zaslow acknowledges that men could learn a lot about friendship from women, something that the women I know have been telling our boyfriends and husbands for years. But there's one question I had: can a man write successfully about women's friendships? After reading that book, I'm happy to say the answer is clearly yes. It's finally spring in Iowa, our 2 afternoons. We welcome you to Iowa, home of real family values and progressive politics. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jeffrey Zaslow.
Well, that was a nice, I would have listened to more of that. That was great. Well, I'm not from Ames. I'm from Philadelphia, but I feel like Ames is in my heart, and it's just so emotional to be here. We were, the Ames women and I were at the Borders earlier, and we thought that just the people from Borders were going to come over to here. We had some people there, but here it's just such a large crowd, so I thank you for coming today. And I feel a little bit like an honorary member of the city of Ames, so thank you. Before I tell you about the book and these beautiful women up here, and I got to tell you, that's my favorite picture. There's a few of the Ames girls that aren't in that picture, but when I saw that picture, I knew I had a book, because look at how close they are together. Me and my friends in high school, we would be like standing like this apart, you know. And they're all, you can just see they love each other there, and that's still the case. They still love each other today. So I love looking at that picture, even though Marilyn took it and Kathy and Kelly aren't in it. Am I missing anybody else that's not in it? That's just it. Well, I thought I'd tell you about my own life and how I ended up coming to Ames. And I write a column for the Wall Street Journal about life transitions. So there's the moments in your life when life takes a turn. You're born, you have your first breath, and you have your first kiss a little later on. Then you get your first job, you get your first husband, you get your second husband. Get your third husband, and then you have your final words to your spouse before you die. I write about those key moments in life. And so sometimes I'll be somewhere, I'm just looking for a story. I was down in Florida a couple years ago, and I was at a red light, and I looked over to my left. There was a police car with a woman. She looked like she was about 106 driving that police car like this. And I said to my kids, I think an old lady just stole that police car. And I wondered, what was it that I just saw? And then I came back to Detroit where I lived, and I called the Delray Beach Police Department, and they said that they have 5,000 senior citizen volunteers. They use mace, stun guns, they wrestle people to the ground. They are the greatest generation. So So I wrote about that for the front page of the Wall Street Journal. I like writing about children what they don't know, the things we don't teach them. I decided to do a story. I'd go to stand in front of the statue of Walt Disney at Disney World and ask 100 kids going by, who is that man? And so I did that, and only 34 kids could tell me who he was. One boy said he died on Space Mountain of a heart attack. There was a girl who said that he lives with Minnie Mouse in one of the hotels. So we got to tell kids these things. We can't assume they know who Walt Disney is just because we know it. So I wrote about that. I like writing about the aging process. Sometimes, I don't know if you've noticed, but as people, as they get older, they don't always look as good as they looked when they were younger. So I thought, who could I interview about that? So I flew out to California and I interviewed Robert Redford. I said, Mr. Redford, you look great. You used to look really great. You look good. I said, what's that like? And he told me a story. He said that he was driving through New Mexico after he turned 60, and he stopped at a ice cream parlor, and he walked in. There was a woman in front of him in line. She turned around. Oh, my gosh, it's Robert Redford. She wanted to play it cool. She got her ice cream. She left. And then the guy behind the counter said to Robert Redford, you see that woman who just left? She put her ice cream cone in her purse. So he knew he still had it. He knew. I sometimes write about my own parents because they have such stories to tell. This is my father. He was a World War II vet and a concentration camp liberator. My mother was a child actress. They both spent 3 years writing their memoirs at opposite sides of their house in Florida. My father's book was 600 pages. He's married to my mother 60 years, but he doesn't mention her until page 502. This is true, he had 11 pictures of Hitler in the book and then 7 of my mother, so. I like writing about love, first love. I mean, I was always bugging the Ames women here to tell me their love stories, because that's what I love writing about. But I wanted to write a story about this boy down in North Carolina. His class, he was in 4th grade, and he was assigned to write an ABC book. And some kids wrote about the ABC book of automobiles. A is for Audi, B is for Bentley, C is for Cadillac, or the ABC books of fruit. Well, here he is. His name is Brian, and he wrote the ABC book of Annette, and I'd like to just read from that book. A is for Annette, that I love. B is for beautiful, like Annette. C is for cute, like Annette. I'll skip down here. K is for kiss, that I'd like to give, Annette. V is for victory when I catch Annette. So I thought it was a beautiful book, and I said to Annette, I said, what do you think of Brian? She said she can't stand him. She said she was a safety. She would arrest him for running in the hallways. It was really a sad, pathetic story. I don't even know why I wrote it. I spent 14 years as an advice columnist. I worked for the Wall Street Journal in the 80s, and I wanted to write a story about this contest to replace Ann Landers at the Chicago Sun-Times. They had this contest, 12,000 people applied. I applied to get an angle for my story, and I ended up winning. So I did that. I did that column for 14 years, and I would get such crazy letters from people, and I learned a lot about human nature, and that maybe helped me with the Ames girls, too. Here's a letter I got. I was writing that in the 80s, before there were even cell phones. So, dear Jeff, I'm dating a very possessive woman. She calls day and night. A few times I've been in the bathroom when she's called, so I didn't answer. Now she's bugging me to get a phone installed right by the toilet. What do you suggest? When I'm in the John, I don't want to talk. So I thought they could compromise. He could get a fax machine there in the bathroom. If she needed him, she could fax him, and he'd always have paper. So I used to go on TV a lot. And people in the audience would ask me questions. And I went on Oprah once, and I was on stage, and a woman stood up in the audience, and she said, I'm cheating on my husband. I'm sleeping with his best friend. I'm feeling very guilty. Should I confess? And I said, you've told 10 million people watching this show. Let's not tell anybody else, just them. I would be asked, for advice about the craziest things. One guy wrote, he says, I know you're Jewish. I'm Jewish. It's Passover. I'm eating a lot of matzah. I'm totally constipated. How am I going to get through Passover? So I thought a good product would be fiber matzah. And the slogan could be, let my people go. So last couple of questions. Dear Jeff, I'm dating Julie, a smart, beautiful woman. I love her and would consider marrying her. However, I'm a breast man and she's flat-chested. How do I go about suggesting that she get implants? Signed, Breast Man. I said, dear man, Julie deserves someone who will love her for who she is rather than what she looks like in a sweater. If you can't do that for her, she won't need implant surgery anyway because she'll already have a big boob in her life. You. So my column was a little different. One woman wrote in, she said she hates me, she hates my column, she hates my advice, and she finds my photo in the paper even less appealing. My editors wrote back, we don't like his photo either, but that's what he looks like. So last one, I got a letter from a guy who said he and his wife are arguing who is more of a man, Greg Brady or Keith Partridge, Brady Bunch Partridge from. I said Alice the maid is more of a man than either of those two. Last question. Dear Jeff, I left high school without graduating. Now the 10-year reunion is coming up and I'd like to go. Should I? I left high school without graduating, wants to go to the reunion. Who says go? Could go and leave early, right? Yeah, I said go. So I did that 14 years, and I came back to the Journal, and I'm still writing about matters of the heart. I like writing about, the Journal is a newspaper about business, the business of business, the business of greed. But a lot of people read the Journal. Who here reads the Journal? Oh, that's nice. A lot of you have families, and you love them, and you want to hear about that. So I often write about matters like love, and I wanted to write a column about the words I love you. And the lead of my story was there was a judge in Chicago whose 17-year-old daughter was going out for the night on a Friday night, and before she left, she said, I love you, Dad. And he said, I love you, too. And then she left, and 5 minutes later, she got in a car accident and died. So their last words to each other were, I love you. And now his wife was in the other room, and she did not get to say I love you to her daughter before she died. So I wrote in the paper, you can tell anybody you want I love you, and you should do it. And that was great to be able to say that in the Wall Street Journal. I have 3 daughters. I guess one reason I was so interested in the Ames girls writing this book is because I have 3 daughters, and I don't understand them all the time. My wife is here visiting from Detroit. Thanks for coming. Why are you following me? So anyway, we have 3 daughters, and my 16-year-old last year was invited to the homecoming dance by a boy, and then she got flowers, she got a dress, and she was very excited. And the day before, the boy calls and says, me and the other guys, we think that the homecoming dance is for nerds, so we're just going to hang out in so-and-so's basement, and that's it. And my daughter was disappointed, and I was unhappy for her. She wanted to go to the homecoming dance, and so did her friends. And, I know what goes on in basements. And I was sad for my daughter. I thought, what could I do for my daughter? And then it hit me. I could embarrass this boy in front of 4 million readers of the Wall Street Journal. So that's what I did. I wrote a column, and I said, you tell your sons to be honorable, chivalrous guys, and you tell them to be kind to the girls in their lives, and you tell your daughters not to put up with anything. And, I know a lot of stories about what went on here in Ames because I've talked to the people here in the front row. And some of your sons were great guys, and some of your sons were also good guys. They were good guys. But I like giving that message in the Journal. So anyway, how did I end up? Well, I should just tell you briefly about the last lecture. That began as a column also. I heard about this professor at Carnegie Mellon. I went to Carnegie Mellon and majored in creative writing. And I heard he was giving his last lecture. And because I went there, I knew what the last lecture series was, which is professors hypothetically saying what they would say if it was their last chance. In Randy's case, he was really dying. And so I called him up, and he was so engaging on the phone, I thought, I'd like to go and see him. The plane ticket was $850 from Detroit, where I live, to Pittsburgh. And my editor said, just call him when it's finished. But I thought, I'd like to go. And so I went, and I sat in the second row, and it was a pretty astonishing afternoon. It kind of changed my life in a way because the book that we later wrote together was so successful. I was working on the Ames book when I did that. I was writing my column just once a month because I had taken book leave to do the Ames book. And the Ames women here, they were kind enough to give me that break for 6 months to do that, and then I returned to them. So that brings me to the girls from Ames. I don't understand women. I'm not sure what got me into this exactly, because it was a long haul, and it was a lot of fun, but it was not what any of us expected. It was like a journey, and a journey that brought me here to Ames. It brought me to meet some of the parents here in the room and to hear from their classmates. And I enjoyed all of it. We didn't all enjoy every minute of it, but we enjoyed what we could. And we're all here going to talk to you tonight. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce you to them. We have a special presentation of their lives, which we're going to show. This is awkward. I know the song, I could hum it.
If not for you, babe, I couldn't find the door. Couldn't even see the floor. I'd be sad and blue. If not for you, if not for you, babe, I'd lay awake all night, wait for the morning light to shining through, but it would not be new if not for you. If not for you, my sky would fall, rain would gather too. Without your love, I'd be nowhere at all. I'd be lost if not for you, and you know it's true. If not for you, if not for you, my sky would fall, rain would gather too. Without your love, I'd be nowhere at all. Oh, what would I do if not for you? If not for you, if not for you, winter wouldn't have no spring. I couldn't hear the robin sing. I just wouldn't have a clue. Anyway, it wouldn't ring true if not for you. 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 I wouldn't have a clue. Nothing would be true. I'm not for you. If not for you. If not for you.
So, well, the good news now is you don't have to read the book. You've seen the video. So, how did it happen? I'll tell you how it all came together. I'd written a column about women and their friendships and how women are so much better than men at their friendships. Men really don't get it, and I'm a man, and I can say that. Men, they say, are side by side in their friendships. They're doing things together. Women are face to face. While men are playing golf and playing poker and talking about nothing, women are looking at each other in the eye, and they're talking about their emotions. And so I wrote this column, and I heard about that, and I heard from about 250 or 300 women telling me I've got a group of friends, and we love each other, and et cetera, et cetera. And I enjoyed getting all that mail. I thought, wow, this touched a nerve. And I wrote everybody back, and I said, thanks for writing. And one letter I got was from Jenny Benson Lichman of Ames. Everybody I'm going to be talking about tonight is from Ames, so I think I'll cut that Ames business. And it was just a little 3-paragraph email, but I said, thank you, Jenny. And her mother, Neela, who must be here tonight. Is your mom here? Yeah. Hi, Neela. Neela also wrote to me. She told me about her friends. So, like mother, like daughter, they're going to be going to the bathroom together later. So I put it away in the bottom of the drawer for 3 years, and then 3 years later I thought, well, maybe there's a story in women's friendship. And so I went back and I went through all these emails, and I was very much touched by Jenny's email. I saw a few others that were interesting, but she told us about Sheila Walsh, who she told me about it. Sheila had died at age 22. There were 11 friends that she had, and they were down to 10, she said. And so she told me about Sheila, and she also said one of our friends, Carla Derby, when she was here, her daughter's sick with leukemia, and we're all rallying for Carla. And she said, but we also laugh so much that it's like crazy. We never make it to the bathroom. And when I was interviewing them, by the way, they always made it to the bathroom. So I never. So anyway, so I called Jenny, and I'm going to ask Jenny to just step up here for a second. But before we do that, Jenny, I think I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves, and then we'll let Jenny tell. Well, no, Jenny, you tell your story, and then we'll. Jenny, come on, Jenny. Just tell. This is. You talk here,
Well, I live in Annapolis, Maryland, and I work in Baltimore. I've been talking a little bit for the last couple of days, so I apologize for the voice. I'm the Assistant Dean for Public Affairs at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, so part of my job is being aware of what's going on in the world, so I subscribe to about 8 newspapers. I read the Post regularly, not the Wall Street Journal. I'm sorry, Jeff. But the person who was supposed to read it that day, I guess, was not there. And so for some reason, I picked it up and I saw Jeff's column. Never heard of him, didn't know about his column.
But I telling that story that never heard of him, didn't know about him.
It's true. So I saw the headline and I thought it would resonate with me. So I read it. And reading it reminded me of my friends. And I've never before sent an email to a columnist. And I never will again. But that day, I dropped just a very short email to Jeff, just telling him how much I enjoyed his column and how much the girls that he spoke about reminded me of my friends. And I'm sorry, I can't call us women. We're girls to me. So he sent back a cursory reply. I'm sure it was the same one he sent to everybody. And I photocopied the article, and I sent it to all my friends, which is a little FYI. This reminded me of you. And I put that in my little folder like I do, and I saved it. And I put it aside, and 3 years later, on a Sunday night, I went through that folder and was tossing things away. And I saw the original article, I saw my email to Jeff, and Jeff's email back to me. And that was a Sunday night. Monday morning, I went to work, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, already in my inbox was an email from Jeff.
I was looking in her window.
And so he sent an email saying he thought it was about time that he wanted to pursue the possibility of writing a book about female friendships, and would I possibly consider asking my friends if we would be willing to open up our lives to him. And of course, I could never answer for all of us, so I said I'd see. And I sent them all an email and saying, I don't really know where to begin, but to remember 3 years ago, I sent you this article. And so they all are intrigued enough to talk to Jeff, and that's where my role ended.
Well, that's where her role began, really. So I called Jenny set it up, and I had an hour-long conversation with each of them just to get to know them. And they were all very excited at the beginning, I thought. Most of them, actually, it was about, I'd say 8 of the 10. I won't, later when we're signing books, we'll specify for you. But they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into, and neither did I. There's never been a book sort of that I found written like this. There's a lot of books about female friendship that are novels, fiction, and there's a lot of self-help books. Here's how to be a better friend, and there's some books, memoirs written from women about their friends, but never an outsider, especially a man, trying to get inside of women's friendships. So it was all uncharted territory for us. And I talked to them that night on the phone, and one by one they agreed. I thought they were lovely and smart and gave great quotes. And there was things they told me even in that initial conversation that were so moving to me. I remember Marilyn telling me about her father, Bill McCormick, who some of you, maybe he was your pediatrician, maybe even. And that, she said that her older brother had died in a car accident at age 7. And she said her dad had a vasectomy, but after losing his son, he reversed the vasectomy, which was hard to do in the early 60s to get that done. so we could have more children. And the child that was born was Marilyn. And she said that in the group of friends, she was sort of shy and a little bit of a goody two-shoes, probably because she knew she'd been brought into a family that was grieving to bring them life, and here she didn't want to disappoint them. So they all told me their stories about their lives, and I was very touched. And I thought, this is the group. This is who I want. And before I tell you more, I'm going to have, maybe you can stand up where you're at. And is this working? You'll make this work. Here we go. Stand up and just tell a little bit about yourselves and your maiden name. Start with Kathy.
Tell about ourselves?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Hello. Is this on? I'm Kathy Highland, and...
Yeah. Stand on stage. All right, on stage.
Oh,
Well, why don't you line up a little bit so it's not here? Come on, Kathy. Good.
we just turn around from where we're at, or you want us up here?
They can't see.
Oh,
There we go.
all right. Hey. Now I've started something. I'm Kathy Highland, and my parents were John and Madonna Highland of Ames. Madonna is deceased, and my dad now lives in Kansas City. I live in Los Angeles for the last 23 years.
I'm Carla Derby Blackwood. I am the daughter of Dale and Barbara Derby, and my mother still lives in Ames. My dad is deceased, and I now live in Bozeman, Montana, and I am an at-home mom.
Hi, I'm Kelly Swagerman, and my parents are Lynn and Larry Swagerman, and they still live in Ames. I live in Northfield, Minnesota, and I'm a high school teacher in Faribault, Minnesota.
I'm Karen Brady Leininger. I'm the daughter of Hugh and Ingrid Brady. I now live in Newtown, Pennsylvania, and I am an at-home mom to 3 children.
I'm Jane Gradwell Nash. I live in Massachusetts. I teach at Stonehill College, and I have 2 daughters. And my parents are Hannah and David Gradwell, who still live in Ames. He taught at Iowa State, Department of Anthropology.
I'm also the daughter of a professor. My dad, Von Spear, was a professor in the animal science department, and he and my mom, Meg, live in Ames still. And I'm Diana Spear Cerusi, did I say that? I have 3 daughters, and my husband and I live in Arizona.
Well, as we're changing, I'll practice my walk here. I'm Marilyn McCormick Johnson, and I live up in Stillwater, Minnesota, and that's number 5 for your voting. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. And my parents are Bill and Sylvia McCormick.
I'm Angela Bendorf Jameson. I live in Wake Forest, North Carolina. My dad, Hank Bendorf, my mom, Amber Bendorf, she died in 1995. My dad's here with my stepmom, Kathy, tonight. I have a 9-year-old daughter named Cameron, and I own a public relations firm in Wake Forest.
I'm Jenny Benson Lichman, and I'm Chuck and Neela Benson's daughter. And I already said I live in Annapolis, and I work at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, and I'm the late bloomer. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-month-old.
I'm Sally Brown Hamilton, and my parents, Bernie and Joanne, live here in Ames, and I'm the only one left in Iowa. I live in Spirit Lake and teach 5th grade, and I have 2 daughters that are 16 and 14.
I didn't know all that about them. No. Yes, is Sunny here, by the way? Sunny, how are you? I didn't see you here. Could you mind coming up here for a sec? We're going to send Mike, I can't see. Come on up. When we embarked on this book, it was hard because they were grieving for Sheila, and they weren't sure whether we should do the book because they weren't sure how the Walsh family would feel about that. And so you didn't read the book until when? A few weeks ago. So I was very nervous about them reading the book because I wanted to honor their daughter and honor the memories of the Ames girls for Sheila. So it's nice that you tell yourselves you're from Kansas City.
Yeah, we're all pretty much in Kansas City now, the Walsh family. And we did just want to take this opportunity to thank the girls for sharing their memories with us. It was very special to us. and especially for establishing the scholarship in Sheila's name. We really appreciate that.
And the book's not that bad. We're not mad at him.
So, I mean, the book just came out a few days ago, but it was hard because there's a lot of emotional, kind of raw stuff in the book, and it was hard for me to say to them, you know, can you share this with the world? And you know, even what was interesting was they said to me, we can share it with the world. I don't know about sharing it with the people of Ames. That's where they had. That's where they had problems. So it was a real journey for us because I had a lot of. At first, they started giving me everything and telling me everything, and they gave me a lot of letters they wrote back from notes passed in junior high school. They gave me, and Marilyn even gave me her entire junior high and high school diaries. I know more about Marilyn than she knows about herself. And so now I had all this information, I had all this knowledge about them, and so I learned things about some of them that they wouldn't have told me on their own because I'd been reading all these letters. So it became a real dance to figure out what should be in the book and what was appropriate, and some of the stuff that was even painful emotionally, what I could use and should use. And so we really, I would say that they hated me at parts of the process. Not hated me, they all wrote, they were fine, but we struggled a little bit, and there were times we didn't even think the book would happen because it was hard. And then, I called the Walsh family. I said, "Can I come down and see you?" Which I did, and to ask them to remember Sheila and to talk about that. And Sheila died at age 22, and the life she would have had. And the girls say, they think about Sheila, what she would have been like as a mother, and what her kids might have been like. So there were a lot of what ifs in the book, and it was hard. It was hard, and I am so honored that they told their story and they shared it with people. And we've been doing media for a few days for this book, and we're hearing from people all over the country saying they don't want to talk about Ames and they don't want to talk about the Ames girls. They want to say, I'm reminded of my own friends. So that's what this book is going to do. It's going to remind people about their own friends. There's still issues that they have to deal with. Kelly is recovering from breast cancer. She had treatment last year. Angela is in treatment currently. And they've shown me how they're there for each other. I mean, I've seen it 100 different times. You'll read the book, you'll see it yourselves. But I've seen even lately how they're there for each other. And I think, Angela, you mind coming up? And you were going to say a little bit. And Kelly, you might want to come up too. Do you mind? Or yeah. They'll just tell you how. Don't forget the cleaning.
Oh, right, that's right. Well, Kelly, I consider her a breast cancer survivor right now because it was about a year and a half ago that she had breast cancer. And I was diagnosed in October. And as of March 26th, I completed 16 chemotherapy treatments. And next Tuesday, I will have surgery. And then a month after that, I will start radiation every day for 1 month. And then I hope by July I'll be on the road to health again, although I feel very good. And I contribute this to the girls from Ames. I mean, my friends have just been wonderful. From gifts, they've sent flowers. We both were the recipients after every treatment, almost, flowers that came from the Schisters, actually. And oh yeah, they sent someone to clean my house a few times. It was wonderful. My husband liked that especially. He didn't have to do it as much. And a lot of them have visited too. And Kelly and Jenny came down about probably 3 weeks after I was diagnosed and had started my treatments. And Kelly brought her shears to shave my head. And because they knew that, eventually my hair was going to fall out. And it was really important to both my husband and my daughter. My 9-year-old daughter, the first thing, when we told her about this, she said, "Mom, you're going to lose all your hair?" And she just couldn't imagine it. So with Kelly and Jenny there, we had this ritual where we first, my daughter, Cameron, cut my hair. And then they were supposed to shave it, but Kelly gave the shears to my husband. He was, we had a mohawk going, and we got pictures, and we videotaped it, and it was just so special, and it made my daughter feel so good. Kelly brought pictures of herself, of how she looked with her hair, and without it, and how she looked then. And her hair was growing back, and she looked great. So that was really very reassuring to my daughter. And the thing was that you're supposed to lose your hair about 15 days after your first treatment, and so that's when they were there. Well, 8 weeks later, I still hadn't lost my hair. And I had already shaved it, and it was kind of starting to grow again. So Kelly kept on emailing me, did you lose your hair yet? Should we have done this so early? But it is now growing back, so I'm excited about it. And I will just always, the pictures we had were wonderful, and I'll cherish that. And really everything that my girlfriends here in the front row did. Jeff talks about in his book how friendships help your health. He has in there a Stanford University study that shows women who are in advanced stages of breast cancer. I'm in stage 3. I don't consider that as bad as stage 4, but women who have advanced breast cancer and have friends that they can share their feelings with, they survive this, and there's better survival rates. So I'm going to survive this, and I'm going to be around when Jeff writes the sequel when we're in our 80s, and it's going to be called The Girls in the Nursing Home. So, thank you. Oh, yeah, you need to say something, too.
Short thing. I'll just add another kind of side note to that. When the day I found out I had cancer, I was working at high school, and I got the call from my healthcare provider, and she said, "Are you sitting down?" And I knew then the news wouldn't be good. And she told me that I needed to surround myself that night with loved ones. Well, the first thing I did is get on the computer and email these women and tell them what was going on. And I immediately had responses from them and phone calls. I was surrounded by love and support. They also called their parents, some of them, who started sending messages to my parents, "Oh, we're so sorry to hear." So the network in Ames is strong. And my mom called me and said, "Is there something we should know?" But no, that's a good network, that it stretches from these women throughout all of this community. So not only are we surrounded by our friends here, but the people in Ames still support us in many different ways, and that's important to us.
I got to tell you something else. These women love Ames. Now, I've driven around here. Very nice. They love it. And anytime I wanted to write something that was even slightly negative about Ames, they were on top of me. It was horrible. Somebody somewhere told me that there's a phrase, aimless in Ames. I don't know where I got it from. And I put it in a little half sentence, and every one of them sent me an email saying, "Do not use that. We never felt aimless in Ames. Ames is great. Who do you think you are?" So they all left, but they talk a good game about Ames. That's it's interesting because there's parents in the room here, and I talked to them too about what these girls were like growing up. And it was I'm so impressed with Ames as a town. I know it's a high IQ town because there's so many people connected to the university, and they're making whatever plutonium. I don't know, what are you doing with that plutonium? and so I was so impressed with the family values here in Ames. And there's things in the book, you'll read it, some of you, and you'll see there's some things in the book they did that were just what kids do, the sort of things that kids do, and to go easy on them as you read those things, because I asked them to share it, and they did, in the interest of not seeming like goody two-shoes. And so there's some of that here too. Jane, you were going to talk. Maybe you had spoken before about what Ames means to you. Maybe remember you'd done that before. And maybe Karen. I welcome anybody to speak, but yeah.
Well, he did say we all left, but I want to make a point that we didn't leave intentionally. We left because of jobs and because of our own or our spouses or, other kinds of family commitments and so on. Because I was mentioning this just the other night that at the college I teach, almost all the students are from New England. And I always make it a point to say that I'm from Iowa. And they said, "Well, how long have you been living in Massachusetts?" And I said, "I figure out how old my daughter is and 16 years. And they said, well, are you from Massachusetts? I said, no, I'm from Iowa. I mean, we live in Massachusetts, but I'm not from there. And I asked the other women here about that, and every one of them said, we don't, except Sally, live here, but we're all from Iowa. None of us say we're from California or from Arizona or whatever. We loved Ames, and I think it was a great place to grow up, and I actually absolutely could have stayed here. But the fact of the matter is I married a New Englander, and New Englanders don't leave New England. It was great, and we love coming back. I don't know if, Kathy, do you want to talk a little bit about coming back? No. She hasn't been back much, and she had a great tour today and was reminiscing about that.
Well, it's interesting because one of them, I don't remember who, told me that Ames was like their shared womb. They feel like sisters, and Ames was the womb. And so, so when I came here a couple times to interview the parents and the old boyfriends were lined up. Some of them are here tonight. I called my wife. She might remember this. That I said, let's move to Ames, and then we didn't. But the interesting thing about friendship, which when you see the book, you'll see this. Jenny's father, who's an insurance guy, where are you, Chuck? Is you here? When Jenny was leaving high school, she was sad about leaving her friends, and she was sitting on the front porch with her dad, and this is the end of the first chapter. And she says, I know we're going to be friends forever and ever. And he was like a Mr. Wet Blanket. He said, oh, well, I don't know about that. He said, I know the actuarial statistics. One of you's going to... He said, one of you is going to be, two of you are going to be divorced, and one of you will leave the group, and he gave her all this bad news. And they've stuck together. They proved him wrong, which Jenny was probably... He was right. No, I know he was right. He was right in some ways, yes. He was right about everything except that somebody would leave the group. Yes. He said somebody would die, and of course Sheila died. He said that there would be some divorces, and there were. But he said that one of them would leave the group, and they didn't. And actually the book became a test of their friendship. It really was, because it was so hard sometimes that they really banded together. It was 10 against 1 when I wanted something done. And I saw how fiercely they were loyal to each other. And it's fun to have this book come out, and I know they're happy in the last few days about it. But they always said they'll throw the book out the window for their friendship, and I saw that too. I want to say something about what Kelly said. Kelly told you the story about how she called her friends, she emailed her friends as soon as she found out she had breast cancer. Kelly told that story in the New York Times on Monday, and it's the most emailed story of the week, second most emailed story of the month in the New York Times. So there's something about what happened here in Ames that resonates with those silly New Yorkers. So I'm happy, we all can. Is there am I missing something, girls, that you would like to say? Anybody want to, Marilyn, Diana, no? We're happy to take questions, and maybe that's a way we can just sort of close things down here. Does anybody have a question? Stand up, and I know it's hard in a big group. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Questions? Yes. Well, anybody want to tackle that one? Marilyn, you want to say? We're pointing at you. It was, it was hard to do. It was hard to do, and I think I told them all along. I said, this book can't be a Hallmark card. They'll remember me saying that to them, because nobody wants to read that. And so they really had to tell the truth about a lot of things, and it was hard for them to do it. I don't know if I could do it. My wife says she couldn't have done it. So it was courageous what they did, is what I feel. And it's not really dirty laundry or clean laundry. It's life. And I don't know, Marilyn, maybe you have a thought.
I just want to say that there are a lot of things that are very, very personal, and we don't know exactly how people will react, but everybody has made mistakes, and everybody has had successes. When you put your life out there, we're a sample of who everybody is, and I think that because it's true, people will resonate and they won't have questions of, well, gee, I wonder if the author took liberties there. Well, we didn't let him take any liberties. So what you read is factual, and you will be able to relate to it because we've all been there.
And she's the one who shared her diary, so... Anyone else have a... Yes. Did I describe that wrong, or did I get it right in the book? Oh, is it really? Right. All right, that's good. Do you have a question too? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Her question was, "Will I come back in July and detassel?" And the answer is no. The kegger, I'll come. That'll do. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. We're gonna be out there in the hallway afterwards. And I think they've got a cake that looks like our faces, not my face, but the girls. Yeah, you have more.
I grew up in a similar cohort. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have email, and we certainly didn't have social networking. Well, that was what the cornfield keggers were, but. And I know throughout the book that you talk about how the inception of email really was a tool that you use, and it sounds like it's still a tool that you use. My concern is I have a daughter who's in middle school right now, and the technology is ubiquitous. How do you develop this type of relationship when you have text message and Facebook and social networking?
Well, it's interesting because I've got daughters myself, and they sit at their screens. They're not really. These girls were in each other's bedrooms here in Ames, talking to each other and being close to each other. So I'm not so sure about all this Facebook stuff, but they will say I'll speak for them, so they don't have to come up here and say it to you. But they say that email is a gift to their relationship. When they were in their 20s and early 30s, having their first children, it was hard to connect. To put 10 stamps on 10 letters and mail it was hard. They lived all over the country. Now their favorite button on the computer is the reply all button, and they're doing it all day long. Lately, they've been talking pretty much mostly about me and their complaints. But that they've used the reply all button, it's great. Anybody else have something to add, or that does it? Anyone else? We'll take one more question, maybe, and then
I just wondered, you mentioned that the difference between friendships between males and females. If you've seen any change in males, and maybe even in yourself, in your relationships with your friends.
Yeah. I have no friends. I have this friend, his name is Mitch, he's a good friend, and he says I love you to me every time we end a phone conversation. It makes me very uncomfortable. I don't even like him anymore now that he's... And I can't say I love you to him. Now, I see these girls, they're doing it all the time. They're saying I love you so easily, and they hug, and they sit so close to each other. I think men, also play in a card game where I've been playing in the game for 15 years. We only talk about the cards or the bluffing or the betting. I don't care about their children, and I don't want to know their children's names, and they don't care about my children either. And sometimes I'm a little more evolved, so sometimes I want to talk about something, and they say, shut up, and let's just play. So I don't think men have made any strides at all. So I'm joking, but men. I did a lot of looking at the research, and the research says men have a long way to go. And even Freud said that sometimes men think that when they're close to other men, it's like homosexuality, and it makes them nervous. Heterosexual men, and so I don't know what it is, and I don't know how many men want to read this book, but if they did, they'd learn some things. So, anyone else? Yeah.
but it's only because I read the book. I haven't ever actually met any of them, but I feel like I know them all. I love the book, and my husband actually told me that you were going to be here and give this talk, and I thought that was great. But then he told me all 10 of the girls were going to be here, and I was really excited about that. And I'm a writer, and so my proposition to the 10 of you is let's get together in about 10 years and do Menopause, the sequel.
Well, you know what? You're a writer, and I give you permission. In 10 years, you should write their story. Let's see what a woman will do with that. Anything else? Any other question? Anything else? All right, I'm going to invite Jenny up here. She's going to tell you a little bit about something else.
Well, Mike Walsh mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I'm going to tell you about the Sheila Walsh Memorial Scholarship that is now official at Ames High. When we started this journey 3 years ago, we really didn't care if it sold books, and to some extent we don't. We really did it for ourselves. This is a chronicle of our friendships for us, for our daughters, for their daughters, for you and your daughters and sons, and whomever has a friend, 1 friend, 9 friends, 20 friends, however many friends. But as we kind of went back through our lives and relived the last 45 or 46 years of our lives, and we relived our lives with Sheila for so many of those years, we realized that we really do want this book to sell because a portion of the proceeds are going directly into the Sheila Walsh Memorial Scholarship. And it was too late for us to get it for this year, but starting in 2010, one very good friend of other girls at Ames High will receive a scholarship to any institution where she wants to go for higher learning. They have to have a 3.0 grade point, but it's not about being smart. It's about being a good friend. And one of the criteria for this scholarship is that she has to have at least 2 letters of recommendations from her friends to say why she's a good friend and why she's deserving of this scholarship. So if anyone has a checkbook, I'll take your check. And it's for the Ames High Foundation, and it's for to honor our very good friend Sheila, who we still love so much and think of every day.
And tell your daughters and granddaughters at Ames High that if they turn out to be mean girls, we're taking the money back from the scholarship. We're going to all be. We were at Borders earlier today, which was really wonderful. Signing books in a big long row, me and all the Ames girls, and so if we'll do the same for you guys tonight. I'm so overwhelmed by the size of the crowd. It's nice that it's playing well in Ames, the book, that you're interested in it. But I was on the phone earlier today, and they printed 70,000 copies in advance, and bookstores ordered another 20,000 yesterday, just the second day since it was released. So it's there's interest out there in the wider world. So we're hoping that what happened here in Ames will inspire people all over the country. So thank you for coming tonight, and we'll meet you out in the lobby.